Hello and welcome to the Burn KC ScorchCast. I am your host, Alex Blackburn, here to bring you the biggest Kansas City sports news this week. This week's show will be somewhat short, but we do have a few things to cover in terms of the biggest Kansas City sports news over the past 2 weeks. My apologies for my absence, as I've been very busy with a whole host of other things. Did want to give a shout out to my friends Brandon and Jordan Hunter on their marriage. Thank you so much for having both Sarah and I out for your ceremony out to Lexington, Kentucky. It was a beautiful ceremony and a great reception. Congrats to the newlyweds. Hopefully though, that will be kind of the last of the hiatuses that the Burn KC takes. I know that I've been really busy over these past couple weeks and haven't been able to get the articles out or any of that going. Got a new CFD article dropping tonight that I'm going to be sharing shortly after this, so be on the lookout for that. But this show, though, we'll be going over Chiefs news regarding their visit to the White House, some adjustments to kickoff, and a few other things. I'm hearing regarding training camp and OTAs. We'll be going over a little bit of college basketball news with incoming freshmen and transfers getting onto campus. We also have a bit of college football news to go over. As far as soccer goes, nothing really has changed much over the past 2 weeks, but we will kind of give a little bit of an update in the minor news section of everything in the outro. And then finally, we'll talk about the Royals a little bit to kind of finish out the main news segments. So enjoy, strap in, and I hope you have a great time watching the show. All right, let's kick things off here with some Chiefs news. The Chiefs have been embroiled in quite a bit of controversy over the past couple of weeks, as we know, from Rashee Rice to Wanya Morris to Harrison Butker. And now, most recently, defensive tackle Isaiah Buggs, who has been charged with animal cruelty for allegedly leaving his dogs outside with no food or water. There's been charges that have been filed, but nothing has came of it as of yet. Nothing in regard to Isaiah Buggs turning him in or anything of that sort. Just another thing to add on to the controversy sandwich, I suppose. Can we just please give the rest already? Training camp is a month away, and I'd rather just focus on football things rather than talking about all the stupid stuff that the Chiefs are doing on the side. God. I suppose a good bit of something is Patrick Mahomes has a Lake of the Ozarks mansion that he's building right now, and Kelsey James went off, without a hitch. So that's something, right? That's cool. But another thing that happened while embroiled in these things, the Chiefs did take a visit to the White House to meet with President Joe Biden regarding the Super Bowl victory. Biden looked absolutely ridiculous in the Chiefs helmet, but that's what that picture's from. While Travis Kelce, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and Clark Hunt all gave speeches on behalf of the organization. Maybe Brett Veach did too. I can't remember off the top of my head. Those are the only four that I saw. But Biden would also commemorate the Chiefs' win and memorialize the Chiefs parade shooting victim, Lisa Lopez Galvan. She was a Latin American radio host in the area. Just a heartbreaking loss for the radio community as well as just the journalism community in general, because with radio comes journalism as well. And I know that plenty of my sports journalism friends knew her personally, so that's a beautiful gesture there by the White House. Very, very nice of them to do that. In Clark Hunt's speech, though, he preached unity and strength as the tools that got the Chiefs to the Super Bowl and won it for them. And he also preached that that's what America needs right now. Very rousing stuff, right? Just typical kind of political speech. Um, and you can't help but think that this comes in wake of the Harrison Butker stuff. But as I said before, just don't say stuff that's controversial and divisive, and the team owner won't have to say stuff like that. Won't feel inclined to say stuff like that. Anywho, I mean it's a nice gesture, but it's I mean it was obviously just kind of a political thing of just gotta cover the butt, gotta cover the butt. So that's just my opinion. But in other news, the Chiefs are gearing up for training camp and are well into OTAs as we speak. Some bigger news coming out of OTAs is that Xavier Worthy may be dealing with some injury issues that has him limited, but should be rectified in time for training camps, from what I'm hearing. Another piece is that Harrison Butker may not be doing the kickoffs anymore, given the rules change. Nothing else. The rules change. And special teams coordinator Dave Tubb is currently weighing his options between multiple different players, including Justin Reed and newcomer, former rugby player Louis Rees-Zammit. Obviously, it's still early, but this does make sense given the rules changes as to why Tobe would want to do this. I mean, going to be a little bit more physical of a kickoff. There's going to be a little bit more strategy involved. It's not just guys hurtling down toward each other and hitting each other as hard as possible. So there's going to be some defensive vision things that Justin Reed would have, Louis Rees-Zammit. It's very similar to how rugby kickoffs works. Not entirely the same, not entirely the same, but there's some similarities in between it. So overall, that's the big reason why Bucker may not be doing kickoffs anymore. He'll still probably he will do field goals, and extra point attempts. I have no reason to believe that they're going to be subbing him out for that. So let's just move on to some college basketball news, shall we? All right, let's talk about some college basketball news. Just one transfer portal update this time around in the world of college basketball. The big news being the NBA draft withdrawal period has closed, with Kansas guard Johnny Furphy staying in the draft, while Kansas State's Arthur Kaluma has withdrawn his name and has remained in the transfer portal. So he's not coming back to Kansas State. I'm hearing Memphis is in talks with him, potentially even Kansas too, as well as a couple other interested schools. On top of that, AJ Storr, Zeke Mayo, and Rylan Griffin all committed to the Jayhawks, yet were testing the NBA draft waters, have withdrawn their names, and will attend Kansas. Furphy and McCullough are expected to be mid to late first round draft picks. Those being the only two projected local NBA draft picks, with Kaluma withdrawing his name. Kansas will be in the market for at least one more transfer player, while Kansas State is also pursuing at least one more player. Many names have been thrown around, but it seems like Kansas wants one more forward, and Kansas State is willing to take kind of what they can get. They still have quite a few roster spots to fill. So unless they want to play on a thin roster, they're probably going to try and fill that out. So I would expect them to continue pursuing more recruits. Missouri, however, has had a fantastic year in the portal and in recruiting. Kind of with the final bow on top being the transfer of former South Carolina center Josh Gray. The 7-foot, 265-pound senior will be another big addition for the Tigers, with rebounding averages as high as 6.3 per game in 2022 and 2023, and a 54.3 field goal percentage being the stats to keep an eye on. He replaces Connor Banover as kind of the biggest player on the team. Let's as far as like height, um, and overall just another big pickup for the Tigers. The Tigers have really filled out their roster. It's going to be really interesting to see what they look like come come November. I mean, I think they'll have a great chance at the SEC, just given how well they've filled their roster out. Um, Other than that, the the incoming players have officially arrived on campus. I know that AJ Storr and Zeke Mayo, Rylan Griffin all arrived in Lawrence today, as well as the incoming transfers for both Mizzou and for Kansas State. Um, Getting to be about that time. Summer practices are coming. So we're officially going to see kind of what these teams are going to look like. And jersey numbers have been released as well. But we're just kind of starting to see what these teams are going to end up looking like come November. So it's getting close. But I'll tell you what's closer. That's college football. We're going to move on to some recent FPI and preseason rankings regarding college football, and pretty interesting. So let's check those out, shall we? Alrighty, let's get into some college football news. In the world of college football, there's not too much going on currently. Like I said earlier, we're kind of getting into the preseason stuff. So the preseason awards list is probably going to be coming out sometime within the next month or so. Obviously, media days are coming up here in the next months. I will be going to Big 12 media days, which I'm super excited for. Um, but we do have some transfer rumors and potential recruits. Nothing solid yet. Kansas did have a visit with five-star in-state tight end Lincoln Cure from Goodland, Kansas. His brother Leighton committed to Kansas this past month, only like a couple weeks ago, as well as Kansas getting a visit from Texas A&M transfer offensive lineman Bryce Foster. Both would be monumental additions for the Jayhawks. Here being, I think, the first ever five-star recruit to commit to the Jayhawks and play for the Jayhawks. Um, I think that's the case, yeah, because I don't know if Jamar Chase, who did commit to the Jayhawks, and Keon Coleman for that matter, I don't think they were five-star recruits. So that would be huge. That would be monumental for the Kansas Jayhawks to get a five-star recruit. And then, of course, Bryce Foster, SEC offensive lineman, that would be huge for a team that has some offensive lineman concerns going into the 2024-2025 season. So, Cure has some visits lined up after this Kansas visit. He will be visiting K-State to kind of round everything off in about 2 weeks or so. But Cure also has visits with Oregon and Texas A&M before that. Foster has not announced a decision date yet, but that's about it when it comes to transfer stuff. Um, that isn't, just rumors. Let's get back to the big piece that I mentioned in the earlier segment, though. Excuse me. And that's the FBI rankings that were dropped today. These rankings are sure to ruffle some feathers. The Missouri Tigers ranked 10th in FPI. The Kansas Jayhawks ranked 17th. And the Kansas State Wildcats, stay with me here, ranked 22nd in the preseason edition of ESPN's FPI rankings. For those that don't know what FPI stands for, FPI means Football Power Index. FPI is basically just putting everything on paper that is on paper right now. So like strength of schedule, roster strength, roster strength and turnover, statistics like past win probability or current win probability rather, yards and scoring per game from last year, and a host of other things are factored in on it. On paper, this is who is most likely to win. These are the teams that the professional bettors are picking in a way. So it certainly counts for something. The on paper part is the kicker there. Obviously, there's a host of other factors. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Factors on paper only matter as much as the factors that are off paper determine. So overall, this is just kind of fun with numbers. Is all this is, but still something of note. With the FBI index, though, Missouri has a 37.3% chance of making the college football playoff. Kansas has a 24% chance of making the college playoff. Excuse me, the college football playoff. Both those teams are in the top 10 for biggest chances of making the college football playoff. Kansas State's at a 22.5% chance. So people aren't underestimating the Jayhawks this year, so they better put up or shut up. And people are underestimating the Kansas State Wildcats, I feel like. So it could be an interesting season in the Big 12. Let's just say that. Speaking of that, I just had an article drop over at College Football Dogs. Go check that one out. That's biggest questions for every Big 12 contender. So go check it out. You may like it. But let's get into some Royals news, shall we? All right, let's get into some Royals news. The Royals have unfortunately suffered a bit of a skid. Individual numbers are still high, with Seth Lugo still being a league leader in early Cy Young candidate, Bobby Witt Jr. having the ninth highest average at 313 and eighth highest RBIs batted in. It's redundant. Sorry, RBIs in the league at 42, and Salvador Perez having the seventh highest average at 315 and 12th highest RBIs at 41. He also has the 12th highest OPS at .899. The thing is with the Royals, this is not a full team effort that we are seeing. Outfield play has not been up to par, with errors mainly coming in the outfield as well as shape not really coming to fruition. People aren't in the right spots. There's really like a kind of a rotating door at outfield. They just kind of have to find something solid and consistent with the outfield right now because it's just not working. Relievers as well are giving up too many runs, especially after starters are giving good innings. Royals need to find a clear, concise closer as well, because I can't watch James MacArthur give up 4 runs in an inning anymore. I really can't. And unfortunately, he's kind of the best closer the Royals have right now. But on top of everything else, the injury bug has just kind of plagued them. Players like Michael Wacha and Vinny Pasquantino have both gotten hurt. Luckily, Pasquantino has found his way back into the lineup. But Wacha may miss time. Wacha may miss. I don't know why that's really hard for me to say, but Wacha may miss time. This brings Daniel Lynch up from AAA, who has had good performances, but he's wildly inconsistent. I'm intrigued to see how they'll incorporate him into the starting lineup. I'm hoping he'll provide a bit, but he needs to at least be serviceable and not cause the starters to have hiccups too. The Royals have, plain and simple, the Royals have won just 2 of their last 8 games with a huge divisional series against the first place Cleveland Guardians coming up tomorrow. They need to be at their best, and while the injuries certainly don't help, the team must find a way to make adjustments in order to win this crucial early season series. I mean, it's by far the most important series of the season so far. They're still 36-25. They're still within 5 games of first place, which could change, mind you, with this. If they can win this series, that gets flipped on its head. So this series is huge. And they still hold that wild card spot by 2 games. These games matter, and the Royals cannot make a habit out of losing when they're up, like many Royals teams have done before. This series is going to be huge, and if the Royals can find a way to win this series, they'll be right back on track. They'll be right back into their winning ways. Let's wrap it up with some soccer and rugby news and just the general outro, shall we? Just here. Alrighty, let's wrap up this show, shall we? And let's just take a moment to really take in the fact that I'm getting this done. It's been 2 weeks. Thank you for bearing with me here. I'm hoping that we're right back on track. It's been a whirlwind of a couple weeks. So thank you for bearing with me. Thank you for being patient while I get this stuff figured out. Like I said in the past ScorchCast, it's a learning experience. Trying to balance everything and trying to make sure that everything's taken care of. But again, thank you for supporting this passion project. Thank you for everything that you all have done. And thank you for putting up with me. But we have some soccer news to talk about. In soccer news, the Currents still hold that second place spot in the NWSL standings just below the Orlando Pride, but are still without a loss this season. Orlando just has that one win over them. I think it was like 8-3 versus 7-4. So it's just a matter of which team slips up first. And that's 7 wins, 4 draws, 0 losses, mind you. Orlando has 8 wins and 3 draws. So that's kind of where that stands. The Current plays Seattle Reign FC on Sunday after having a bye week this past weekend. And unfortunately, Sporting has continued their losing ways, dropping to the bottom of the Western Conference after losing their last 3. Their most recent loss coming to Minnesota 3-1. It may or may not be time to have the conversation about Peter Vermees, especially if the losses continue to pile up. It's the same thing as last year. It is. I mean, the losses are piling up. Sporting's skidding out. Sporting needs to get back on track. Plain and simple. They need to get back to form and go on a winning streak, much like they did last year. But as stated before in the last ScorchCast, do they have the energy and ability to do that again? To do that again? I mean, really, time will tell. But it's not looking good for Sporting. It really isn't. You're hoping for a turnaround there, but this is a rough year for Sporting so far. But in Blues news, the boys will have their first tournament up at Hodge Park in Liberty, Missouri, when they take on the Northland Tournament. Teams from all over Missouri and the surrounding states are expected to attend, and it should be a fun local tournament to kick off 7th season. A whole bunch of local teams will be there. You'll get a showcase of what local rugby looks like in the Mocan area. So come on out this Saturday, June 8th to watch. But yeah, other than that, that's all the sports news I have for this week. Oh, forgot one more thing. The Kansas State Wildcats baseball team is through to the Super Regionals, as is Southeast Missouri State. So 2 local schools, kind of local, because Cape Girardeau is practically Tennessee. But Kansas State, well, come on, Manhattan's 2 hours away anyway. I digress. 2 local teams are through to the Super Regionals in baseball, which means if they can get out of the Super Regionals, they go to the College World Series. It's awesome, folks. I'm a Jayhawk through and through. Let's just say that. But it is exciting to see the Kansas State Wildcats advance to the Super Regional. Maybe, just maybe, they have that shot at that first NCAA national title. I'll put some respect on crop judging. Sorry, but even SEMO getting there. Look at SEMO beating Arkansas, one of the top ranked teams, the team that hosted that regional. Just big stuff from the Red Hawks. So you love to see it. But that's our show for the week. I have been Alex Blackburn. This has been the Burn KC ScorchCast. Signing off. Have a great night. I will see you next week.